Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 193, and today I want to talk to you guys about price shopping. But before I do me a huge favor, click that like button, really helps out the channel. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well. We greatly appreciate it. That being said, let's talk about why I'm actually bringing up this topic of price shopping when it comes to hearing aids. Well, my wife, Ashley, who works inside the clinic, she often answers phone calls from patients wanting to schedule appointments to come in and get treated at our clinic. But just the other day, she had received a phone call from somebody who had gotten a price quote for hearing aids at a different clinic, and he had called our clinic to find out, hey, could you match or beat this price that I got for these specific hearing aids at this other clinic? And she honestly, she's very good at trying to identify what the difficulties are of a patient, trying to help them understand the value of best practice audiologic care, but sometimes people straight up just want to know price. That is the only thing that they care about when it comes to getting hearing aids. And honestly, I think that this is a huge problem. Now, in other industries, I totally understand the idea of price shopping. In fact, I do price shopping myself. If I'm going to be buying something like a pair of shoes that I can get at 10 different places, I'm probably going to end up going to the place that I can get those shoes for the lowest price. But that works great for standard made, products that you can purchase pretty much anywhere, like this camera that I'm recording on this particular vlog. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you're buying something that has a huge service component to it. So let me give you an analogy. If you're going to have a house built, or if you're going to have a contractor come in and build, I don't know, a shower for you, you probably want to go with the people who are the best at actually building a shower. Now, you can give a bad contractor the same supplies, the same tile, the same glass, the same hardware and fixtures and all of that, and give it to them and give that same stuff to a really good quality contractor, and you're going to get a different result with those same exact supplies. So this is really how it is inside of the hearing industry. Now, there's a lot of, I would say, companies that are out there that the main focus that they have is to drive the price down on hearing aids. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. It makes hearing aids more affordable to certain people. The problem is that they're treating hearing aids like a straight commodity. And they're not taking into account like, well, hey, you could get this really good hearing aid for a very low price, but then have that hearing aid fit by someone who's not following best practices, and you actually don't get a very good outcome. And that's the reason why price shopping inside of audiology doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If hearing aids were capable of just perfectly treating someone's hearing loss right off the shelf, you just enter in an audiogram, put it in their ears, and it works the way that it should, that would be one thing. But it's a completely different thing when there's hours and hours worth of work that should go into optimizing the performance of those hearing aids for a hearing aid user. So if you end up going to a particular clinic and they say, okay, hearing aids are going to be $5,000, and here's the make and the model and the technology level and all of that of these particular hearing aids, and you're like, great, I'm going to go and take that recommendation and go somewhere else with it and see if I can get it for a lower price. That creates the problem of you could be calling up a clinic that's like, no, we're actually $1,000 more than that price quote, and you're like, well, I don't want to pay $1,000 more, so I'm just going to go back to the original place. You're not asking the right questions. You need to be asking, okay, from a best practices standpoint, are you following comprehensive audiologic best practices? And there are a lot of different things that go into audiologic best practices. In fact, of course, I have a video talking about all of those best practices that I will link down in the description. But this should be your number one concern when it comes to comparing different clinics or comparing different hearing aids at different clinics or price shopping different clinics. If there's a clinic that would actually do a better job for you with those specific hearing aids, it might be worth spending a little bit more money to have that done, or in some cases, a lot more money. Because I've had patients come into my clinic who spent $5,000 on a pair of hearing aids only to find out that they got almost no benefit from them, and they only started to receive benefit with those hearing aids when they transferred care to our clinic, and we were able to go line item by line item and checklist item by checklist item following comprehensive best practices to optimize the performance of those particular devices. The other thing that you have to consider when you're doing price shopping is that when one clinic recommends a certain hearing aid to you, there's no guarantee that that is the most appropriate hearing aid for you. For instance, that particular clinic might only sell that one particular brand of hearing aid, no matter what type of hearing loss you have, no matter what your wants and needs are, doesn't matter. They sell one brand of hearing aid and that's what they're going to recommend. Now, our clinic, for instance, might sell that exact same hearing aid, but because we work with 6 different brands, we might actually determine, well, actually, based on your hearing loss and your wants and needs, you don't need that hearing aid. That is the wrong hearing aid for you. You actually need this other hearing aid, and it would do better than the one you were originally recommended for X, Y, and Z reason. And this is true for pretty much any clinic you go to. Even if you get that exact same hearing aid that you were recommended at a place that is the same price, and maybe they even do follow best practices, if they're not good at working with that particular hearing aid, you're probably not going to get the full amount of benefit out of that device. So trying to just get a recommendation at another clinic, take that recommendation to a different clinic, or even going online and trying to purchase that hearing aid for cheaper, you might actually be doing yourself a disservice. In fact, we see this more often than not inside of our clinic because we spend, I don't know, half of the patients that come into our clinic are coming in because they went and got their hearing aid somewhere else and they're not doing well with them, and we have to fix the problem. And sometimes we can fix the problem with those same devices, and other times we're like, yeah, the issues that you're trying to solve, you actually can't do it with the hearing aids that you have, so you're going to have to get new hearing aids again, and you just spent substantially more money in order to do so. Now, I really can't stress enough how this is a dangerous game that you play if price is the only variable. Now, if price has to be the only variable, that is totally fine. Go with the cheapest option that you can find, but you have to be careful here because sometimes when you go cheap, you get screwed over because they're not actually doing the things necessary to optimize your performance with those devices. This is why so many people put their hearing aids in the drawer and just stop wearing them, because they spent good money on them, but they're not actually getting a substantial amount of benefit with those hearing aids. So think about this the next time that you get a hearing aid recommendation, you're like, you know what? That seems a little high for what I want to spend. Let me call around and see if I can get a lower price, because I can promise you this, someone will always be willing to give you a lower price. And in the back of their head, they're like, okay, well, if price is the most important thing to this person, clearly performance is not. So I'm going to cut as many corners as I possibly can when treating this individual with these hearing aids, and they'll be happy regardless because they got to save some money, maybe a couple $100, maybe $1,000 or more. And so I really just can get by, and I can make a quick sale. I can make a couple $1,000 right off the bat, and I'll be better for it as a clinic. I mean, when you look at big business, really big businesses love to undercut pricing because they're big enough that they can absorb even having a loss on a particular sale because they know that the likelihood of that person returning and purchasing more stuff from them is higher. So you end up going to these big, corporate-run clinics that are like, yeah, we're willing to make a very little margin on this device that we're going to sell to you. And they're okay with that because they look at device sales more than anything. And on top of that, they know that when the next time that you come in to purchase hearing aids, they can increase the price of those hearing aids. And because you're already ingrained in how they do things, they know that there's a higher likelihood that you're going to repurchase with them rather than going through the hassle of trying to find a new clinic. So you could literally be setting yourself up for worse performance, not just now, but for years into the future, unless you're aware of how these things work. I mean, being in this industry, I can tell you that most clinics view hearing aid treatment as hearing aid sales. They do not view it as hearing treatment. And this is a huge problem. I still think that it makes sense for hearing clinics to sell hearing aids because they need to use those devices to achieve high treatment outcomes or better, or treatment outcomes, period. But I just think that when you look historically at hearing aid treatment, it is a sales organization. There are a lot of sales organizations out there. They are more concerned with selling hearing aids than they are with treating hearing loss. And anytime that you're price comparing, when you find a clinic that's willing to price match or reduce the price below what a competitor is doing, chances are you're walking into one of those clinics that only cares about sales, they don't care about treatment. Because the clinics that care about high quality hearing treatment, they know that they have to charge more in order to accommodate for all the time that they will spend with you to make sure that they get your treatment right. So the next time that you get a recommendation for hearing aids and it's at a certain price, I want you to think twice before going to shop around, unless your goal is to call around and find out who is following comprehensive best practices, because chances are if you go to one of those clinics, whatever hearing aids you get will work substantially better. That is all I wanted to talk about in today's vlog, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that you hit that like button, and as always, I'll see you next week.